Imagine England in the 17th century, a country where the first sparks of modern science were just beginning to glow. It was a time when old ideas, rooted in tradition and authority, were being challenged by bold new discoveries. And into this world was born a boy who would transform our understanding of the universe. His name was Isaac Newton. Isaac was born on December 25, 1642, in the small village of Woolsthorpe. His birth was dramatic. According to family accounts, he was so tiny and weak that no one believed he would survive. But he did, and had someone looked into his future, they would have seen a genius who would reshape the course of science. Newton's childhood was far from happy. His father died before Isaac was born, and when his mother remarried, she left the young boy in the care of his grandmother. Loneliness, emotional distance, and the need to find answers on his own shaped him into a quiet, observant child. He loved to build mechanical toys, water clocks, windmills, sundials. His view of the world was technical long before he became a scientist. Isaac attended school in the nearby town of Grantham, where he stood out as a rather odd and quiet student. He wasn't a natural leader, but he possessed a fierce determination. One story tells of a classmate who bullied him. Newton fought back physically, and then intellectually, by outperforming the boy in every subject. For Newton, a challenge was the best fuel. Eventually, he was admitted to Trinity College at Cambridge University. There he encountered the works of the great thinkers of the time, Descartes, Kepler, Galileo. Yet instead of being satisfied with their ideas, he began to form his own. He realized that these thinkers had laid foundations, but the building of science was still incomplete. But Newton's most important breakthroughs came not at Cambridge, but during a crisis. In 1665, the Great Plague struck England, and the university closed for an extended quarantine. Newton returned to his family home in Woolsthorpe. This period became known as his Annus Mirabilis, his year of wonders. In that quiet countryside retreat, he made some of the most significant discoveries of his life. One day, Newton sat in the garden near his house. The famous scene of the apple falling on his head is a bit of a myth, but something like it did happen. He saw an apple fall from a tree and asked himself a simple question. Why? Why do objects fall down? Why doesn't the moon fall onto the earth? Could there be a single force that controls both the falling apple and the motion of celestial bodies? From this thought came the idea of universal gravitation. Newton realized that the same force that pulls the apple downward keeps the planets orbiting the sun. It was a single law, acting everywhere in the universe. And that was only one of his discoveries during that remarkable year. Newton also developed the foundations of calculus, a new form of mathematics for studying change, motion, and curves. He investigated the nature of light and concluded that white light is made up of many colors. To test his theory, he used a prism to split sunlight into a rainbow. When Newton returned to Cambridge, he was no longer an ordinary scholar, but a fully formed scientist. His discoveries impressed his colleagues, but he didn't publish them right away, partly because he felt they weren't perfect yet, and partly because he feared criticism. Newton was brilliant, but extremely shy and sensitive, yet the scientific world could not wait forever. Thanks in part to the encouragement of the astronomer Edmund Halley, Newton was persuaded to publish his work. And so appeared one of the most important books in the history of humanity, Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, or simply the Principia. In this monumental work, Newton formulated his 3 laws of motion, which became the foundation of classical mechanics. And he presented the law of universal gravitation. These laws explained almost everything: the flight of a cannonball, the orbit of the moon, the paths of planets. Humanity gained a universal language for describing nature. The world was no longer an unpredictable mystery. It became a system governed by precise, logical rules. But Newton's path wasn't always smooth. He had fierce disputes with Robert Hooke over the nature of light and gravity. Some considered Newton overly sensitive and easily offended, and indeed, he could stop talking to someone for years after a disagreement. Yet beneath this difficult temperament was a mind driven by passion for truth and precision. Later in life, Newton held official positions in London. He served in Parliament and eventually became the Master of the Mint. Here he showed another side of his character. He investigated cases of coin counterfeiting, interviewed suspects personally, and worked tirelessly to reform the currency. To a man who sought order in the universe, the financial chaos of England was simply another problem to solve. In 1705, Queen Anne knighted him, making Newton the first scientist to receive a knighthood for scientific achievement. Despite all his accomplishments, Newton remained human with quirks and contradictions. He believed in alchemy and spent years trying to understand the philosopher's stone. He wrote extensively on theology and engaged in complicated religious debates. These interests didn't diminish his scientific brilliance, they simply show how wide his intellectual curiosity was. Newton lived a long life and died in 1727. He was buried in Westminster Abbey, among kings and the greatest figures of British history today. Newton's name stands alongside the most influential thinkers of all time. He discovered the laws that form the basis of modern physics, invented the mathematics of motion, transformed our understanding of light, and changed the way we explore the universe. But perhaps his greatest contribution was not a single law or equation, it was a new way of thinking. Newton taught humanity not just to observe nature, but to look for the laws that govern it. He showed that the universe is not chaos, but a harmonious system that can be understood. His famous words still resonate, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Today, we know that Newton himself became one of those giants, a pillar on which modern science firmly stands.